This morning we learned that Joe Biden, when the president was speaking to the executives of BP, walked in the Oval Office and threatened the chair of BP. Give us the $20 billion or we'll take it. Where does he get that from?
I have no idea. I had a friend write me and said he called the White House and said, where does the president get the authority? Where does the president get the authority? And this is a guy who can actually get through. He said he doesn't need it. He'll take it. Excuse me?
You know, BP should be responsible, I think, and you probably agree with me, for all the damage it caused. But that doesn't give the government the right to seize BP assets and the government to distribute those assets as it sees fit.
I tell you, it is frightening to me that we're becoming more and more Hugo Chavez-like every day that goes by.
This week on the Glenn Beck program, I argued that the government told BP to drill in 5,000 feet of water instead of 500 feet of water, where the state of Louisiana said that they could drill. So they drilled in an area where no oil company has ever been able to monitor the flow. The federal government has never been able to tell them how to monitor the flow. And the law of the land gives them a liability cap. I think you could argue that the government is in large measure responsible for this mess.
You want to drill for oil. Why do it in 500 feet when you can do it in Montana? We have huge oil reserves onshore. The government is absolutely pushing us. The president is actually talking about peak oil. Well, I think you see, because they have to drill so far underneath the water that we're at peak oil. Are you kidding me? Let us drill onshore. You wouldn't have this problem.
Just to switch gears for a second, do you agree with me that we don't need a Department of Energy or a Department of Commerce or a Department of Education, and that clearly they're not authorized by the Constitution? What do we say to our liberal friends about who would manage this area of human behavior if those federal departments are gone?
People would. You tell me what we've gotten out of these things. What have we gotten? The Department of Energy has overseen this. That's what we've gotten. That's great. The Department of Education is overseeing our schools. They're failing miserably. What are we getting out of this? And you're not going to have much more to say to your liberal friends soon, because we don't have the money to do it anymore. The federal deficit has gone, the unfunded liabilities. And think of this.
Right.
They were $109 trillion. This week they've been upgraded, after we have health care, to $130 trillion.
What, are you a libertarian?
Yeah, I think so. I say that with respect to libertarians, because I don't think they want me in their camp sometimes.
You know I want.
I know.
You know that.
I was a guy who didn't believe the things that I did 10 years ago, started to really, about 6 years ago, really started to open my eyes towards the end of the first term of the Bush administration.
Right.
Turned hard. I bought into the, hey, wave the flag and let's get them. And didn't really, I think it was more the average person, didn't really understand what was going on. Started getting really bad feelings after the first, the last year of the first Bush term.
Well, you and I agree that our rights are inalienable, that the government can't take them away with a piece of legislation or a presidential decree. So if we have the right to privacy, can the Congress authorize federal agents to write their own search warrants in violation of the Fourth Amendment?
No.
That's what the Patriot Act does.
I know, but I was willing to. Here's where I stood on the Patriot Act at first, which was, we got to do something. That's danger. Whenever you say that, we got to do something. And that's what I said.
Right.
Got to do something.
And the Congress did that too. They didn't even read the Patriot Act.
Yes. But we were all, it was a foreign enemy, so it was easier to say, got to do something. My stance on the Patriot Act was, at least it has a sunset. At least it has to, every 6 months, you got to come back. You got to hear anybody who is being abused by it, et cetera, and it has a sunset. I don't think it has a sunset anymore.
No, it doesn't. It's now 16 years, the so-called sunset.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem. And now we're taking it, as they always do. And again, being a foolish person who didn't really even know what was going on in the world until September 11th, being somebody who didn't pay attention, they never let go of that power. They only build on it. And the things that they're building on, it was spooky back under Bush. It's terrifying now.
Do you accept Jefferson's maxim that I always say at the beginning of every Freedom Watch, that government is best which
Yes.
governs least? Why do you believe that?
Because I have not seen the government do anything except cause problems, with an exception of maybe defense, but I'd like to give it a whirl on defense that wasn't solely run by the government. I think you have private individuals that could probably take care of things in Afghanistan better.
You know, there's a weird phrase in the Constitution that lets the Congress issue, quote, letters of marque and reprisal. That basically means hire a private army to get this done, and they can get it done faster, easier, and far more efficiently.
We wouldn't be in Afghanistan today if it wasn't for that. I also think that the founders were exactly right. They knew that all people, go bad with power, and you've got to limit that.
I frequently am confronted with the argument in which people say you have to balance safety and liberty. I have often argued that it's not a balance, it's a bias in favor of liberty. Your favorite founding father, Benjamin Franklin, once said, those who would sacrifice essential liberty in order to obtain temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. You agree with that?
You're about to see, that is, don't waste a good emergency. The opposite of that is don't waste a good emergency. And I think you're about to see that in ultimate play. It's happened before. It happened in World War I under Wilson, where we rounded up the Germans. We were lynching Germans. We lynched a German. A mob did, and was released under Woodrow Wilson. Released. The jury was so biased by propaganda that they said they just did their patriotic duty. A guy was killed and executed because he said a prayer in German to a dying woman.
In the state of New Jersey, a guy was prosecuted for playing Beethoven's music in public, prosecuted by the federal government, Woodrow Wilson's Justice Department, during World War I.
It's frightening. And that's what happens when you have an emergency and the government is too large. There's not been a small government that has rounded people up.
We got so much reaction to our premiere at the last week's Tea Party summit with Sarah Palin and Ron Paul. Are you more Sarah Palin or Ron Paul?
It's a hard one. You see, here's my problem with Ron Paul has been that libertarians don't win elections because A, they don't explain it well enough, and they also don't take into account that you have to do it. It's taken us over 100 years to screw this up.
You're talking about the messenger, not the message. You accept the message.
Oh yeah.
You want
I'm
a
much more
messenger
the
that
message.
Things.
The message. I'm much more Ron Paul than Sarah Palin. The way that message is delivered, or better yet, executed. It's taken us 100 years to screw this thing up. You can't just say, "Hey, we're going to pull all of our troops out from all around the world." It has to be done, but it has to be done carefully.
I think Freedom Watch just made some news. Glenn Beck, quote, "I'm much more Ron Paul than I am Sarah Palin."
In message, I am.